On tap tonight on Saturday Night Thunder from the Rose Festival in Portland, Oregon. It's the American Racing Series. Young Canadian Paul Tracy has won 3 of 4. He starts from the pole position. Can he make it 4 of 5? And the direct descendants of the Indy cars from 50 years ago, the USAC Silver Crown cars. The last time on ESPN back in February from the Copper Classic in Phoenix. Tonight they're at Indianapolis Raceway Park for the Pepsi-Cola 100. It has been a hot, hazy, humid Saturday with some rain in the area. However, the rain has dissipated, and right now we're enjoying clear skies, 76 degrees, high humidity, but look at that, only a 20% chance of rain. Hi, everybody, I'm Gary Lee, and welcome to Indianapolis Raceway Park. We have a thrill in store for you this evening, a very rare appearance of the USAC Silver Crown cars on pavement. And joining us for the telecast is a 2-time Silver Crown titleist, Larry Rice. He won the title in 1977 and in 1981, and also along to cover the pit area, once again, Marty Reed. But as we said earlier, there is a link to the Indy cars of yesteryear. And here with more on that in the pit area is Larry Rice.
Thanks, Gary. I'm standing down here in the pit area beside a USAC Silver Crown race car. We affectionately call it a championship dirt car. These cars are the cars that dominated the Indianapolis 500 until the mid-1950s. The last one made the race in 1956. Then they gave way to the roadsters and the rear-engine cars that we have today. And basically that was because of aerodynamics. The driver in this race car sits straight up in the cockpit. The pedals go straight up and down. He has a roll cage over his head for safety. All of these things don't lend themselves well to aerodynamics and the high speeds of the Indianapolis 500. But they do lend themselves to the dirt tracks of America, and they still run all over the dirt tracks and in a few pavement tracks like we have here today. It has a 350 cubic inch Chevrolet engine in the front end of the race car instead of in the back like at Indianapolis. This engine is a little smaller than most of the sprint cars that we've seen run out here. It has all of the fuel in the back, 75 gallons of it, which is a much bigger fuel tank than we usually see. So many of the characteristics are the same, but there are many that are different. This race car is a little heavier than the sprint cars and the midgets, so it has different characteristics of handling. The wheelbase is the same, the wheel width is the same as an Indianapolis car, but it's bigger, heavier, and a little tougher to drive on the pavement than many of the cars that we've already seen. Now let's go to Marty and see what he has for us.
Thanks, Larry. Hello again, everybody. You know, Larry mentioned about fuel capacity. It weighs 400 pounds right over the rear axle, but also as the fuel decreases, as the race continues, that means the rear end of the car gets a little looser. Tire setup will be critical. Now, you want to talk to a man about tire setup? Let's talk to defending champion Ken Schrader. You not only won last year, but in 9 times in these cars, you have finished first 5 times and second twice. So you obviously know what to do out there. How crucial is it as the fuel load goes down and how the tires will work?
Well, it's very crucial. You know, we just barely have enough tire to run 100 laps, and when you've got the full fuel load, the car really lays on the rear end of the car. It really burns up the right rear tire. You've got to baby the tires to start with, so you've got a little tire left at the end when you lose the fuel and you've got a lot less weight. But you know, that's the end of the race, and that's when you still got to be fast.
So from a strategy standpoint, could we see you sort of laying back as long as you don't go a lap down, that kind of thing?
Well, you know, we with tires made a terrible qualifying effort. We messed up and did wrong in tires. We're starting 11th or 12th, so we can't really be laying back. We're going to have to kind of hit it right at the start and at least get up to 5th or 6th so we can see what's going on and then pace ourselves accordingly to the lead pace.
Well, I guarantee you by the end of the race, if the car is still running, he will have figured out the setup, and we'll probably see the defending champion here at IRP running towards the front again. Gary?
Well, thank you, Marty. And, of course, the fans love to see the guy that runs NASCAR all the time up here in the Midwest running these Silver Crown cars. We have a 25-lap qualifier and a 100-lap main event, and it's all coming up, so stay with us. Tonight's live racing on ESPN Saturday Night Thunder is brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is One Tough Motor Oil. By Champion, makers of the high-output technology spark plug, the world's most advanced. And by Budweiser, the king of beers. Remember, know when to say when. We are back live at Indianapolis Raceway Park. Now here is your 25-lap Jonathanburg qualifying race lineup. In the front row, a former champion in this division, George SNIDER, inside in 11. Another former champion, Jack Hewitt, outside in 63. In the second row, we have Jimmy Sills now leading the point standings in Indiana's Andy Hillenburg. In the third row, on the inside, Gary Heber from Pennsylvania and local driver Trey House. In the fourth row, Inside, Tony Elliott. Outside, Jeff Bloom in the car that you would normally drive, Larry Rice. In the 5th row on the inside, Steve Butler, a 3-time USAC sprint car champion, a former dirt titleist. On the inside, outside 93 is Blake Hollingsworth. In the 6th row on the inside, Manny Rockhold, and outside Rusty McClure. Row 7 on the inside finds Chip Thomas in 24, Kevin Whitesides alongside in 47. And row 8, Ed Lynch Jr., a 2nd-generation driver in 94. Bentley Warren subbing for the injured Gary Bettenhausen, starting outside. In the 9th row, Jerry Niemeyer and Greg Staub. In row 10, on the inside, Lynn McIntosh and Perry Farrell. In the 11th row, Brian Tyler and Denny Milburn. These are the drivers, Larry Rice, that qualified 15th through the balance of the field. Now, the first 14 fastest qualifiers were locked into those first 14 starting positions for the 100-lap main event. These drivers will have to qualify and finish in the top 10 positions. And we are about ready to go green. They come down for the start. Wally Shear turns them loose. A drag race into the first corner. The high line is the line to have.
Yes, it sure is. Jack Hewitt was on the outside. That's the groove, and he got into the lead real quick. George Snyder is stuck on the inside. He can't get back up inside, so another car passes him going down into turn 3.
Jack Hewitt has won this title in the past, but he is noted as a dirt track specialist, but now he has to qualify on the pavement for this qualifier.
Yes, but he's done quite well, Gary, on the pavement as well. He's had 3 or 4 top 5 finishes in the pavement cars, so it's kind of a misnomer that he's only a dirt track racer.
Andy Hillenburg from Greenwood, Indiana, a suburb of Indianapolis, pulls around the high side of George Snyder, moves into 2nd position. Snyder drops back to 3rd. There are a couple of Andy Hillenburgs, but this is the one that lives here in the Indianapolis area.
That's right. And it looks like George Snyder's running a much lower line than these other guys. I don't know whether his race car isn't working quite as well, or he's trying just to get a line on Andy Hillenburg and get back around him. But he seems to be running a lot lower through turns 3 and 4 than everybody else. Here he tries to pass.
He move very, very low. Look at it, almost down to the infield grass. The high line, this is a momentum racetrack. If they can keep the car on the high line and keep the speed up, they have the advantage coming off the corner.
They sure do. It's very, very tough to get around a guy on the inside down here where George is trying to do it. It looks like, to me, this is the toughest place to go inside. It's down in 1 and 2, but he just pulled the pass off on Andy Hillenburg. And he did a great job.
The turns are banked about 13 degrees, so they can lean the banking just a bit, but the track flattens out down there where George is trying to run.
That's right. It's not a straight up bank. The bank is kind of elliptical or whatever. So the bank is higher at the top of the racetrack than it is down at the bottom. So the groove is usually higher on this racetrack. And he's doing a pretty good job. He's staying right underneath him, and he's trying again on Jack Hewitt down here between 3 and 4.
Now, this is the area where they're very hard on the brakes going to the corner. This track is very, very difficult on brakes.
Yes, and these race cars are pretty heavy. They're much heavier than the midgets and sprint cars that we've seen run here in the past. So you have to get on the brakes going in the corner. You have to get on them hard to make sure those cars don't head for the fence as you enter the corner.
And of course, with George Snyder, Ziggy using that low groove, it's his responsibility as he tucks under Hewitt to keep that car stabilized and not slide back up into Hewitt.
That's right. The slide job is the favorite method of passing, I suppose you might say, where you run real hard, real low, just as George is doing right now, except he doesn't get far enough ahead. He doesn't get the slide right up in front of Jack. We have a spin.
A car to the wall, that is Jeff Bloom in car number 5. Now, that is the car that you were with during the opening of the show. That has your name on it, but you elected to be up here in the booth tonight. You've not retired from racing, have you?
No, I certainly haven't retired from racing. At this moment, I'm glad I'm not sitting in that race car, to be quite honest with you. But that is a very good race car. It's a race car that I've run for the last 7 or 8 years, and unfortunately, they had a problem. We didn't see what happened, but they've definitely had some kind of a problem and got into the fence.
Well, you said they had some trouble setting the car up and getting to work on pavement. Let's look again as we watch down the front straightaway going into turn 1. This is Jeff Bloom.
Okay, he's got a flat right rear tire. You can see the right rear tire was going flat all the way down the main straightaway. As he entered the corner, he did a real good job keeping it off, but just couldn't quite. He had too much speed. The brakes didn't slow him down. When that tire went away, he had no way of stopping that car. He was in the high groove. He was up next to the fence. He got on the brakes as hard as he could, and he still had the race car straight up to the moment he hit the fence. But once he hit the fence, he had no help. It looks like he's okay, which is good news, and I don't think the race car is hurt real bad, which is real good news. There's
a situation where you mentioned he was on the high side. Had that happened on the low side, trying to pass somebody, we could have had a multi-car accident.
Yes, it might have. He didn't know the tire was going down. He didn't really know until he turned into the corner it was going down. If he had had an inkling that it was going down earlier, he would have pulled down and entered that corner lower, trying to keep it away from the fence. But only at the moment that he turned that car left did he realize that something was wrong. And then he started getting on the brakes. He tried to keep it straight as he could and hit the wall as flat as he could, but he just couldn't quite do it. He finally hit the fence, then the front end went into the fence, and the car spun on around and hurt the car a little bit.
Well, as Jeff Bloom walks away uninjured, we can tell you we have completed 6 laps, and Jack Hewitt leads it. There are your top 5, SNIDER, HILLENBURG, SILLS, and HEWITT. We're here at Indianapolis Raceway Park. More live action coming your way. We are still under yellow here at Indianapolis Raceway Park as they work on the track up there where Jeff Bloom made contact. There is Jimmy Sills, who presently leads the Silver Crown point standings by virtue of that big win he had out in Sacramento, a very popular win because of the hometown fans out there. That was the race that Gary Bettenhausen was injured in. He is presently in 4th position as your mount goes back to the infield on the hook.
Yes, she looks a little worse for wear and tear there, but I'm sure it's nothing major, and I'm sure they'll have it fixed before the next race. But it's a thing where Jeff just had nothing he could do. The tire went down. He kept it straight all the way into the fence, but it just it wasn't to be.
I made the comment that you had mentioned earlier that you were having some difficulty getting that car to work on pavement. These cars primarily run on dirt. Some of these cars run very well on pavement and not so well on dirt. So one car may not do well on both surfaces.
Well, that's right. Some of the cars are better suited for pavement than they are the dirt, and just vice versa. So then you make changes sometimes.
We should be ready for a restart now. As you can see, they pick up the throttle into turn 3. They roll into turn 4. And once again, George SNIDER likes that low groove coming off the corner. There is the green flag. We're working on lap 7. This is a 25-lap qualifier. We say qualifier because the first 10 finishers will transfer to our 100-lap main event. And right now down the backstretch, Ziggy goes low again.
Yes, he's getting into the corners real good. He's getting through the corner about the same as everybody else, but he's getting into the corner real hard. That's the reason he's trying to get down there and get a run on the guy going into the corner and get around him. And this, if he just had just a little bit more speed, he could. He got
almost got together right there, and Hewitt got very high.
I think that's what happened. I think Jack thought he was going to hit him, and he just pulled the wheel just a little bit. When he did, the back end got around. And these cars are so big and so long, when you just jerk the wheel a little bit, it doesn't take much to get that rear end out from under you, just as George did again there, trying to pinch the car, and the rear end got out from under him.
Now, every time we see smoke coming off that right rear, he is abusing the tire, and that tire starts to go away.
Yes, it does. This is only a 25-lap race, and they're going to let it all hang out. They know they've got to make this race. They've got to finish the first 10, and the better they finish, the better the starting position they're going to have in the main event.
I want to talk strategy right now. If you were in the red number 85 car where Andy Hillenburg is right now, would you lay back just a little bit, seeing how close these two are getting? He could be right in the middle of a melee if those two guys touch.
Well, there again, he's racing. He's not thinking about that. He's thinking about gaining that position, and he's trying to size up George and get around him. He knows that his best chance is on the outside. He knows that he's got to go around him on the outside because George is running so slow. Turn 4 is his best opportunity to do that, but he just doesn't seem to be able to get up close enough to pull it off.
Larry Rice, you're in the broadcast booth this evening. Jeff Bloom took a ride in your car. He is now a spectator, and he's standing in the pit area with Marty Reed.
Jeff, you were telling me just before we went on the air here, you didn't feel that tire going away until it was too late, did you?
Right, yeah, the tire, when I went into turn 1, the right rear dropped down, and that was your history then. You're along for the ride. So that's just the way it goes.
I'll tell you, Larry Rice said 2 things. First, hey, I'm glad Jeff's okay, but boy, I'm real glad he didn't dent that car too much.
Yeah, we didn't tear it up too much for him. You know, it's just one of them things. I'd like to thank Dave and his wife for, letting me have a chance to run the car. It's just too bad it turned out the way it did. That's racing, I guess.
Get him next time.
Oh, yeah, we'll try.
12 laps now complete, and that battle continues up in front as George SNIDER works the low side now coming off turn 2. Ooh, he had to step on the brakes just a bit right there.
Yes, he did. Jack Hewitt's doing a real good job. He's staying right in the groove. He's running right where he has to be. He's making George go to the place that is not the fastest on the racetrack. When he drops down like that, it's harder on your tires. It's not quite as fast because the banking isn't as great, and he just can't quite get the momentum going in. If he could get just another car link, he could slide up in front of Jack Hewitt, take away the groove, and make him go somewhere else on the racetrack.
A good look there to youngster Trey House in the yellow 31 car. And to the low side, there is Steve Butler, very, very low, a 3-time USAC Sprint Car champion. He won this Silver Crown title in 1988, and in sprint car competition out here, we've seen him cut the grass all the way to the infield. He was very low that time.
That's right. He's a master of the so-called slide job here, and he's tried it many times with sprint cars. He's been successful a lot of times, and he's been unsuccessful a few times. But that's probably going to be the move that he's going to try to pull on Trey House here. He doesn't seem to be getting the momentum in this race car that he does. These race cars, like we said, are a little bigger. They're a little heavier. It's hard to get that big momentum. Here he's going to try it, but he just can't quite get that thrust into the corner. Oh, that's Gary Heber.
Gary Heber was up there against the fence.
If he wasn't touching the fence, he was darn close to it, wasn't he?
Well, you talked about these cars being a longer wheelbase, heavy cars. They're very slow reacting. You really have to look over the hood and drive it way out in front, unlike a midget or a sprint car.
Oh yeah, you got to drive way out in front no matter what. And here goes Butler. He just got around Trey House. He pulled that move off. He got back up in the groove. Gary Heber's got a big tire problem. The right rear is smoking very badly. Either he really wore the tire out or it's going down.
Well, your leader's about to complete lap 17 of a 25-lap event. The first 10 finishers will transfer, and once again, George SNIDER, who won this series championship back in 1971, is riding in second. He keeps looking to the inside in each corner, but simply cannot carry off the momentum to make the pass.
Yes, it looks like the turn 3 should be his best chance to get this done, but he just can't quite get in far enough. Jack Hewitt is coming in low enough that he's cutting off the exact spot that George wants to be, and then he's sliding up higher. It looks like Andy Hillenburg is really going to give George a tough time here in a minute. He just keeps edging up there, and I think any minute he's going to be able to just gain that car length and keep him down off the fence coming off the floor.
We saw a number of these cars in practice and qualifying pushing coming off the corner. Any common denominator that would make all these cars push this evening?
Well, I think that it must have been a change in the racetrack, and the thing that makes me think that is that almost everybody that went slow did the same thing. Kenny Schrader pushed real bad. Jeff Bloom pushed real bad. Bentley Warren pushed real bad. All these guys that really know pavement racetracks, they all took the same guess, and they all guessed wrong. And here comes Hillenburg. He got up there just far enough. Oh, he just couldn't hold it. He was a little loose. He got up beside him, but he got a little loose coming off forward. He allowed George to get back in front of him.
Well, we saw a black flag being displayed for Blake Hollingsworth, who was riding in that 10th and final transfer position. That would move Manny Rockhold in car 17 to the 10th position.
Yeah, here he comes again. He's going to try it again. He gets loose. When he gets up outside George, the rear end goes away from him. He just can't quite pull it off.
You know, I still have to question at this point. Andy is still trying for second position. He knows he has a transfer position in the waning laps. The way these guys have been battling and almost touching, why take the chance of perhaps tearing up the equipment? There's not much money to win in this particular event.
I know, but if you're racing a race car, you're racing a race car. It doesn't matter whether you're racing. Here he goes. He finally did it. The back end stayed under him, and he got around him that time. That's what he's been trying to do for the last
drove right down in front of him to try to get the inside line, and Hewitt going into turn 1.
Well, he knew he got a good run off of turn 4. He knew he had a lot of straightaway speed, so he thought while he had the momentum going for him, he was going to try to pull off another pass at the same time, but he just couldn't do it.
Working now on lap 23, about to complete lap 23 of this 25-lap event. Jack Hewitt, the veteran from Troy, Ohio, who likes the dirt a whole lot better. And Jack has never been a good qualifier. Generally on a dirt track, he'll start in the middle of the pack, but toward the end of the race, there he is.
Okay, the lap cars are starting to play a portion of this race. Both of them had to go around a little back marker here, and they're causing a little trouble. Okay, here we have the white flag coming up.
The back marker there as the white flag is out the final lap. Your leader, he is led from the starting green. That is Jack Hewitt. But once again, we have some traffic out there as we take a look at Jimmy Sills there in the red 54 car down the backstretch. Can Andy Hillenburg make a move to the inside? He takes a look.
He's going to give it a try. He's not going to stand there and wait. He's smoking that tire, but it's a little too late now. I don't think he's going to get it done. He might even lose second.
And does he lose second? Yes, he loses second position trying to overhaul the leader for the win. But Jack Hewitt takes that victory.
After all that hard work, he worked the whole race to get around SNIDER, but he couldn't give up. He had to try to win it on that last corner, and when he did, he gave up that second position.
What can be learned from this qualifying race as far as changing the car and preparing for the 100-lap main event?
Well, these guys are definitely going to be better prepared than the guys that have been sitting in the pits watching. They can go in, they can look at their tires, how they wore, how hot they are from left to right rear, tell what kind of stagger they want to run, how exactly they want to set the car up. So they have that advantage. However, they have the big disadvantage of having to start no better than 15th.
Well, once again, let's take a look at that battle for second. You can see the right rear smoking on Andy Hillenburg. He is down low, but look at SNIDER. He has the momentum off the high side.
That's right, that high groove off of number 4 where he had the momentum going, and he comes right down to the line. Boy, I'll tell you what, it's pretty close, isn't it?
Well, there Jack HEWITT is out of the car. Congratulations all around from Jonathan Bird, who sponsored that race. A good crowd on hand. It's a hot, humid night here in Indianapolis, and we'll come back and talk to our victor momentarily. Once again, we still have a 100-lap feature coming up on Saturday Night Thunder. Stay with us.
Jack, thumbs up, Jack.
Well, we're back in victory lane with the man of the moment, Jack HEWITT, and it's 1 down, 1 to go, Jack. And first thing, you know, it's exciting to watch, but it's got to have a lot of confidence factor in there for you with George SNIDER inside of you, lap after lap, that close, open wheel racing.
Well, I think that's what makes this sport what it is today, you know, and George is somebody that's been around for a while, and I think you can trust him actually with your life, I guess you want to put it, and I don't know, it's fun racing like that. The laps go by quicker, and the fans enjoy it more.
Now, some people say if you win this race, it's actually an advantage because you now know what the track's going to be like now. The sun is down. You've been able to figure out the tire configuration. But it's also a little bit different. Now you got to go 100 laps. Do you feel like you've gained something out of this?
Well, we haven't had a chance to look at our tire yet, but I think I needed the extra 25 laps because Hamp changed the torsion bar on our race car, and we needed to try it before the 100 laps. And now we can fine-tune on this setup, and hopefully we'll be a little quicker for the 100-lapper.
Well, we'll keep our eyes on you. Jack HEWITT, your winner here in the last chance race, the semifinal. We'll be back with more from Saturday Night Thunder at Indianapolis Raceway Park.
We have seen Jeff Gordon here at Raceway Park on the oval in a midget, a sprint car, and tonight on Saturday Night Thunder, he'll be in a Silver Crown car. But this week on the 2.5-mile road course, he tested a Super V.
What do you think?
It's neat. It's really hard to judge the corners because you're so low.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's what, like, I started having to brake a little bit earlier for this one here.
Right. You can't feel the thing roll.
Right.
You just have to.
Boy, once it gets sideways, though, you don't know it's going to get sideways. You know, it just all of a sudden does it.
Good jump.
But at least you can control it.
Even harder for Jeff to control is his enthusiasm about taking another step up the ladder. David Lindeconte, whose former Super V drivers have included Al Unser Jr., Michael Andretti, and Jeff Brabham, offered Gordon the opportunity for some track time. But unlike his predecessors, this 18-year-old may not be headed for the major leagues of open wheel racing.
I would really like to go to NASCAR. I really enjoy NASCAR, and if I could be there in a couple years, that's where I'd want to be.
Would you be willing to take your career to Europe and run road racing over there?
Definitely. You know, if the right deals came along and it was a good opportunity where I thought it'd definitely enhance my career, I would definitely go over there.
While the future holds nothing but promise for Gordon, such is not the case for another fan favorite, veteran Gary Bettenhausen. This dirt car accident 4 weeks ago in California left the Indy 500 veteran seriously injured. Still recuperating at Indianapolis Methodist Hospital, Bettenhausen remains uncertain about climbing back into the cockpit of a sprint car or a dirt car.
Well, right now I can't say for sure either way. I'm sure you will at one time or another. Now, whether it's going to be this year or next year or whatever, I've got to do some serious thinking about this. I have a very good opportunity, I think, for a good car at Indy next year, again with Mr. John Bernard, and I goofed myself up once before with a good Indy car ride with Roger Penske by not listening to the man, and maybe I got to do some serious thinking about this.
We look around your room at the well wishes, and I know you've been besieged with those type of well wishes from your race fans.
It's, you know, those cards on the wall make it a lot easier. Makes the stay a lot shorter. And it's just a great feeling.
those cards and letters coming to Indianapolis Methodist Hospital and Gary Bettenhausen. You talked with Gary today. You notice he didn't say for sure he would not climb back in one of these things. He's getting a lot of pressure from his wife, Wave, and from the kids. And Wave says if he climbs back in one, he might be back in the hospital.
That's right, and I don't know whether she really rules the roost or not, but I think she could carry a big stick at any rate. Gary's in much better humor today than he has been. He says his skin grafts have gone well. They tell him that they will be out of the hospital sometime next week. So that upped his spirits a little bit, and I think that he's a very thankful person. He was especially thankful to the guy that came up there with that fire extinguisher, who really wasn't even on the fire crew out there, and actually saved his life.
Well, I know Gary is watching this evening. We want you back in a race car real soon. Get well, buddy, and come back and join us. A lot of fans here, and they're going to have a great race to watch, and you're going to have a great race to watch. The Pepsi-Cola 100 live from Indianapolis Raceway Park. It's all coming up. USAC Racing from Indianapolis Raceway Park is brought to you by Budweiser, Beechwood Age for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. By Kawasaki Motors Corporation USA, Kawasaki, the Good Times Company, and by Quaker State, the Big Q is One Top Motor Oil.
Well, the tire wars in this series is just as heated as any other that you would find, and Hoosier and Goodyear are waging an all-out battle. But what you may notice as you look around, it might be a little harder now that the wheels are turning on some of these cars, but a number of them have a combination. 3 Hoosiers and 1 Goodyear, including our defending champion, Ken Schrader. The left front is a Goodyear. The reason? Well, the tire size was not available from Hoosier, so they had to go to the Goodyear. So that's the reason why. And I guess the contingency money will still be there. But what are we going to do in Victory Lane, guys? Call him a Hoosier?
Well, we'll just change some more hats, I guess, won't we?
That's right. It always takes a lot of hats in Victory Lane nowadays.
Notice the car on top of the cage. We have a camera, so we're going to go for a ride with this youngster right here in car 29. He won it last year. And we talk about speed, the heavier cars, the lighter cars, the more horsepower cars. The sprint car can lap this track 121.8 with the track record. The Silver Crown car 118.3, a midget 115.6. But I really have to think this Silver Crown car may be the biggest workout physically.
Well, it's a bigger race car. It's a longer race car. It's actually an easier riding race car than the other two. It's not quite as twitchy, but because it has a 355 cubic inch engine and it's a little heavier than the other cars, it is harder to get into the corners. You have to use more brake. You have to finesse it more. You cannot recover as quickly. If you get in there and slide a little bit, that heavy race car does not want to recover like a sprint car or midget. So you have to be more careful and keep the race car straight.
Well, a couple of pleasant surprises up in front on the front row. Warren Mockler in car number 75 and Eric Gordon outside in car 81. In row 2, we have Brent Keating in number 96 and Stan Fox in 37. We move to row 3 on the inside. Bob CICCONI, who won a race here at the Raceway Park last year in a Silver Crown car, and young Jeff Gordon. We've spoken a lot about him this season outside row 3. In the 4th row on the inside, Wally Pankratz, who had a real scare earlier in a flight. We'll talk about that a bit later. And Rich Vogler in car number 16. In the 5th row on the inside, Davey Hamilton, a veteran of super modified competition, and Bob Frey with that V6 Chevrolet starting outside. In the 6th row on the inside, there's Kenny Schrader, your defending champion. He's won this race on 2 occasions. And Wayne Hammond up from Tampa, Florida. In row 7 on the inside, Chuck Gurney, a former titleist, in fact, the defending Silver Crown champion. And Roy Carruthers making his debut in a car owned by A.J. Watson outside in car 7. In the 8th row on the inside, Jack Hewitt. We saw him win the last chance race, the qualifying race earlier. Car 63, George SNIDER finished 2nd in that contest. In the 9th row on the inside, Andy Hillenburg. Outside, Jimmy SILLS, who leads the Silver Crown Points Championships to date. The 10th row on the inside, Steve Butler and Trey House outside. Row 11 on the inside is Gary Hebert. Outside is Tony Elliott. And the 12th row on the inside, Rusty McClure. Outside, Manny Rockhold. And the 13th row, an added starter, Bentley Warren, driving for the injured Gary Bettenhausen. There's Wally Pankratz, and he had trouble on a flight out of Denver when the jet lost one of its engines. Actually blew up a jet engine this morning.
Yeah, he said that thing dropped 10,000 feet and nothing flat, so I don't think you're going to scare him too bad out here tonight.
So his stomach is back and plays out of the throat. He's ready to go racing. We are ready, and there is the green flag, and we are underway for 100 laps. The Pepsi-Cola 100 from Indianapolis Raceway Park at 3 abreast, and this is not a 3 abreast track for these cars.
No, it sure isn't, but that outside groove once again was the main groove to have, and the outside front row, we got the leader.
Bring out down the backstretch, a very big track, 0.68 around the outside, and they're about to complete 1 lap, and once again the strategy will have to come into play. Eric Gordon is out in front. We saw Eric almost win a USAC sprint car race here, but he was defeated by no relation Jeff Gordon. Now once again strategy comes into play. You have to go slow enough to conserve your tires and fast enough to win. Look at this great darkway shot right above the head of Kenny Schrader.
You can't get much better than that. Kenny Schrader's a very, very shrewd operator. He knows what he's doing out there. He takes a few more chances than I think I might sometimes, but I'll tell you what, he's a good shoe in a pavement race car.
Well, he moves up quickly. As you told us earlier, did not qualify well. They made some bad guesses on the tires for qualifying. He started inside the 6th row. But he's driving a red car for a change. Normally, Boston Louis Seymour has a black car.
It's almost impossible for me to get used to that race car being red. I've seen Boston Louis race cars run for a long time. They've never been red.
Good shot of Bob CICCONI, the black 3 car, as he makes a move on the inside.
Yeah, he's moving up real quick. He started back a little ways farther than we thought he would, but he is moving up real quick here at the beginning of the race, and he's using that same low groove that George Snider used in the B main. But the only thing wrong with that is it's going to use his tires up more, so he's got to be careful, especially with that full fuel load.
Well, he was working on car number 16, and that would be Rich Vogler. And right out in front of Rich Vogler is the number 37 of Stan Fox. Fox had a good qualifying run, started outside the 2nd row.
You see, okay, here goes Vogler around Fox. Fox must be having trouble. He got 2 cars got around him going down that backstretch. Usually when that happens, you've got a problem of some kind.
Once again, these cars are a longer wheelbase. You have to make a decision to do something a long way in advance. It's not like a midget where you simply turn the wheel and stab the throttle.
That's right. It looked like some sparks coming out of the bottom of Stan Fox's car. He's lost 3 or 4 more spots, so I think he's going to have a problem. He's going to probably have to come in and look at it because it doesn't look good for him right now. It keeps falling back more.
That is Wayne Hammond in the 88 car in Tampa, Florida, leading that group of cars down the front straightaway to the 13-degree banking. Although these turns all look the same, they're not. Each corner is different at this racetrack.
That's exactly right. Turns 1 and 2 have more banking than do 3 and 4. 3 and 4 are a lot flatter, especially turn number 4. It's the flattest corner in this racetrack, so you have to really be careful not to get sucked into the fence coming off turn 4.
There you are on the front straightaway inside the race car with Kenny Schrader.
That's right. Schrader has already done exactly what he said he was going to do. He's up in 5th spot now. He's worked his way up to that position that he wanted to be, and he's going to sit there. Maybe he's going to try to gain 1 more because the first 3 are pulling away a little bit. It's a great shot. Oh, he touched wheels right there. I tell you what, you don't want to do that very often in these race cars because you climb that wheel, you're in big trouble in an open wheel car.
But how close he is to the outside wall down the front straightaway, then dives into the corner. Now watch, we're off of corner 2, and now he makes a move to the inside. There we look down the backstretch side by side. That's Wayne Hammond up high and Kenny Schrader down low, and he makes the pass.
Well, you saw Hammond get a little sideways. Once he lost the momentum, and once he got that car sideways, he got it slowed down again. It took him a long time to gain that momentum back. And while he was doing that, Schrader ducked down under him, had his momentum going, and went on around him.
But look at Bob Frey in the 20 car. That is the V6.
That's right. That's the V6 powered car, and it's 250 pounds lighter than any of the rest of these race cars because it has less cubic inches and is a smaller engine. He has an advantage through the corners sometimes because of less weight. We'll just have to see how it goes with his tires. Uh-oh, big crash.
There's a crash now over in turn 3. 3 cars involved as we try to get the identification of those 3 cars. We were working on lap 10.
It looks like Bentley Warren is one. Tony Ellett is one. Those are the 2 we can see. They're both getting out of the cars, and they look to be okay. There's 1 more car involved that we can't see right at this moment. But Tony Ellett, Bentley Warren. Bentley Warren, of course, was a promoter's option, had to start last, and was trying to work his way up through the traffic, and obviously somebody had some trouble, and he got involved in the accident.
This has been a tough racing season for the Holt Delrose racing team. They destroyed that car out in California. Gary watching tonight from Methodist Hospital here in Indianapolis, and now more damage to another car that they just put together.
That's right, and I know how Gary feels right now because, oh, here we go. Looks like, I don't know who it was up in front. Boy, oh boy. Almost got upside down. Whoever that black car is almost got upside down. It looked like Tony Ellett was in the front of the group, and the other two guys were trying to get under him. And in the process, the black car, there it is, Manny Rocco, number 17. He was underneath Warren. Warren was underneath Elliott, and they just all got together. And Manny Rocco was very, very fortunate because it hit on that left side, and usually the left side suspension is softer, and sometimes it gives away and lets that car go on over.
Well, you saw how high it was up in the air, and about all he could do was duck down and go for the cellar and wait for it all to end because he went for the ride. So we are under yellow here at Indianapolis Raceway Park. We have completed now 10 laps. We have a lot more to go. Stay with us.
Back at Indianapolis Raceway Park, and earlier you heard Gary Lee and Larry Rice talking about Stan Fox backing up. We checked with their crew. They're not sure whether they had a right rear tire going down or whether it was the master cylinder. They told us during practice and qualifying that the master cylinder was weak, to say the least, but then they ended up qualifying very well in this event. So they're not quite sure. This yellow may help them sort it out.
Well, Larry, amplify, if you will, what the handling characteristic would be if you had that tire starting to go down.
Well, if you have the tire starting to go down, it's going to make the one back end be real loose. I don't think that really looked like the problem, or he wouldn't still be out there. More than likely, it is the braking problem he talks about. And when you have a braking problem and the brakes don't work, it feels like somebody's behind you pushing you into that corner, and they won't stop. Just like you were in a truck and somebody was shoving you and you were trying to put on the brakes and the brakes wouldn't work. That's what he feels like when those brakes won't stop him getting into the corner. Consequently, he has to get out of the throttle much sooner and float into the corners a little easier, and that could be the problem.
Well, there's a look right there at Eric Gordon, the youngster from Greenfield, Indiana, just east of Indianapolis. He was the Rookie of the Year in the USAC Sprint Division last year and having a great season. Brent Keating comes in from California, and he is riding in the second position right now. These yellows will count, so the yellows are being clipped away. 20 laps are now completed out of a 100-lap event. We move back in the serial, and there is Rapid Rich. Rich Vogler, a 5-time USAC midget champion. Twice he's won in the sprints, but he's still looking for his first championship in the Silver Crown division. And this is one of the older style cars, but it's not an old car.
That's right. This is a new car that A.J. Watson built. This is, of course, Jeff Gordon. The other Gordon, we've got two Gordons in here. Jeff Gordon is the new phenom that we've talked about. And then we go back to Kenny Schrader. He's already up to 5th spot. He looks real good. I think he's running right according to plan and doing exactly what he wants to do at this point in the race.
And Wayne Hammond, we saw Kenny go by Wayne Hammond with the use of that in-car camera. Wayne in the blue 88. He is out of Tampa, Florida, and he rides now in the 6th position. And then we move back to the 7th position. That would be the V6 Chevrolet of the number 20 entry. That is Bob Frey in from Wickenburg, Arizona.
I think
Frey, of course, would perhaps late in the race have the advantage because of the weight. He can really take care of the tires.
That's right, and I think Bob Frey is just where he wants to be. He knows he can't out horsepower these guys. He knows he's got to outsmart them, outthink them, and outlast them. So therefore, he's trying to do that right now. He is waiting on them. He's a little bit of a unique case as far as his occupation goes here.
Well, he works for the Sunland Mortuaries out in Arizona, and they give him time off to come and go racing, so we just call him Digger. We move back to Bob CICCONI, and I don't know what Bob does for a living. I really don't, but he flies his own twin-engine plane around the country so he can go racing every weekend. Bob CICCONI in from Prospect Park, Pennsylvania. He's a fun guy to deal with. He really is, and his dad Lou comes along,
and he knows his race cars. He's a very smart race car driver. He's won a race here. He won one of the 75 lappers last week. So he's a person to be dealt with. George Snyder, won our semi. He's already come up a little ways. And then Wally Pancrat's right behind him. So looks like some of the guys that didn't qualify so well that we thought might have trouble have moved up steadily right here at the first of the race.
Well, Snyder started in the 15th position. Actually, Snyder started in the 16th position. He has moved to 9th, so perhaps he has that car sorted out, and perhaps he has it working on the low side where he tried to get it to work in the qualifier. He's moved up nicely. Now we have 23 laps complete. We shouldn't see the green flag when they come by this time. And they pick up the throttle. We can hear the RPMs raise as they come off the 4th corner, and there is a good look down the straightaway, and they stay pretty much in single file as they work into turn 1.
Yes, Brent Keating had an idea. He might try to get under him, but he couldn't quite pull it off. As we've switched to the back of the field, and here goes Rich Vogler. He did. He got a good restart. He got a little bit of a jump coming off of turn 2. He got around Brent Keating. It's the typical way you got to get around a guy at this racetrack.
Vogler Vogler now is in second position, and there is a gap, about a third of a straightaway between Eric Gordon and Rich Vogler, but Rich will try to close that gap down.
Yeah, it's always a concern when you see a guy get that far out in front. Oh, here we go, Steve Schrader. He's not going to sit back there and wait. He said he would be content up in fifth, but it looks like he's going to make a charge on right to the front.
Well, Schrader right now behind the Delta Faucet's entry of Jeff Gordon. He had some great things to say about young Jeff out in Phoenix. Jeff in a Silver Crown car in Phoenix in the Copper Classic finished fifth. Schrader, of course, won it. And on the victory podium, he said, who was that kid? Boy, he's good.
That's right. Jeff Gordon even admits that Kenny Schrader is one of his heroes even today. Here we see SNIDER. He's making a good move again. He's using that low groove. Eric Gordon is pretty far out in front at this point. My only fear for somebody that gets this far out in front this early is that they don't have the race car set up. They may be fast now, but as that fuel load goes away, that 400 pounds lightens, it's going to be awful tough for him to keep back into that race car underneath him.
Well, I would also think for a youngster with only limited years in sprint car competition, and then now in the Silver Crown Series, that perhaps the adrenaline starts to flow, and I'm out in front. Let's see if we can't go even faster.
That's right, and in any other year, he would be the new phenomenal driver. So far, it so happens that this year, Jeff Gordon is here, and he is the phenomenal driver because he's winning.
The phenomenal driver this evening for an older gentleman may be Ziggy. George SNIDER in the school number 11 has really made a good restart. He has gotten by Jeff Gordon, and he is tucked right in behind Kenny Schrader, and he looks again to the inside. So Ziggy may have the fastest set of wheels out here. Let's go back to the pit area and Marty Reed.
Well, you guys were talking about George SNIDER earlier. There was a conversation, so to speak, of should they or should they not allow radios out here? In other words, so the pits could talk to their drivers. Well, George SNIDER says, hey, if the guy in pit lane wants to drive, let him climb in the cockpit. He said, no way do we need more dollars spent on radios.
Well, this track is really too small to have much concentration factor when you're talking back and forth to the pit area.
Yes, it is. It's awfully tough. You got to just drive the race car and not think about what's going on in there. I tell you what, George SNIDER, we talked about what he might have learned in that semi-feature by running it, and I tell you what, it looks to me like he learned a few things because he's moved up a long, long way so far.
Still running down low. He's abusing that right rear.
That really looks bad, and I think it's eventually going to cost him because you cannot abuse that right rear in this 100-lap race like this. Those yellow flags will help him, but if he keeps running down there, keeps having that blue smoke come off, which means he's abusing it, then he's going to have trouble when it gets down to 90 laps or so.
That is Jeff Gordon right behind him at number 35. And now we go back to the front of the pack, and as we take a look now at Eric, we talk about controlling the car, taking care of the car, nursing the car. Very smooth off the corner that time. Let's watch him down into turn one. He does not appear to be abusing that race car.
No, he's using a lot of the racetrack. He's running real high on the racetrack, and it doesn't appear that he's just taking out a ride right now. He's taking it nice and smooth, keeping the race car straight, which is what he has to do. This is number 4 that he's coming off of right now. He doesn't have any problem getting off there. A lot of guys get loose off of 4 because it's so flat, but he's coming off there nice and straight, which is very important.
Well, look at the lead now that he has developed after that restart. At one point, it looked like Vogler was closing in, but now it's a nice straightaway advantage. As we now make a move back, there is your leader, and we go all the way back to the white number 16, and there is Rich Vogler. So a straightaway advantage for Eric Gordon.
Okay, Rich is coming off the corner pretty straight, too. It looked like he was a little bit more sideways than Eric is getting off the corner. Rich is not the kind of guy that's going to sit back there and let somebody run off and leave him. He's going to go after him. And it looks like Rich is sawing the wheel a little bit more. If you watch his hands as he goes through the corner, he's moving his hands back and forth a little bit more than Eric Gordon was.
All right, there's a look at Keating in 96, Schrader in the red 29, the black 11 of George SNIDER. That's the battle for 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Okay, Kenny Schrader's being very smart right now. He wants to get around Keating, but he doesn't want to use that tire up. He's going real high and trying to run off the corner straight and low to get around him. He's not going to run in there real low and use up that tire trying to get around him. If he has to run there for a while until he can make a pass in another way, he will. But he runs up a little higher, trying to save that tire, and looks for another way rather than getting down to that real low groove.
I think what you're saying is an older, experienced driver has perhaps a little more discipline than a younger.
Of course they do. It's just like being a shortstop in baseball. If you lose a little speed, you make up for it in some other manner. You release the ball quicker or whatever. And that's what Kenny Schrader's doing. He's using the experience that he's gained over the years to try to make this pass and not trying to muscle the car around.
Well, let's go back now in the pack, and there is a pass right there as The number 20 V6 Chevrolet of Bob Fry goes to the inside of number 88, or goes by the outside of number 88, Wayne Hammond. We talk about occupations. Wayne sells trucks down there in Tampa, Florida.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of different occupations. Chuck Gurney's a carpenter. We talked about the mortician. There's all kinds of different occupations. These guys got to make a living. But there's a lot of these guys that do nothing but race cars. And those guys know that they make their living doing this, so they're out here to race hard.
And you told me not to make the remark about all you drivers letting your wives support you.
That's
so
right.
I won't say that.
You're not supposed to say that.
Don't send your cards and letters. I don't want to read them. Well, now, of course, traffic, always in a 100-lapper, comes into play. And that he almost has to tiptoe through the slower cars.
That's right, but I'll tell you what, he's got things well under control. It looks like that race car is working just about as well as any dirt car I've seen around this racetrack for a long time. They've obviously done their homework. They got the race car right. He's not feeling any pain. He's catching up with the guy. He's sizing him up, and he's passed him. He's only following him through one corner. He's right behind Jimmy Sills right now. He follows him through one corner, and he's gone. He's really got that race car exactly where he wants it. He's doing a great job right at this moment.
Well, there's also a rhythm that develops in the race car. It looks so hectic from up here watching from the grandstand, but once in the car and once the rhythm develops, I'm not going to say easy, but it's easier than what it looks.
That's right. And here Kenny Schrader has picked up another spot. He's got around Brent Keating. So that patience that we talked about, he waited, he found the spot, and then he went around it. He didn't abuse his tire doing it, but he found the right spot. He got his chance, and he got around it. Now we're going to see what George Snyder does. He's going to try to do the same thing. We'll see if he tries to run high and then run down under him as Schrader did. It looks like he's doing the same thing that Schrader did. Following high through the corner, hoping that he makes a mistake and go around him as he gets down the straightaway.
Now, a lot will unfold in the final 20 laps, Larry Rice, because we don't know what type of a compound these drivers are using or what brand of tire these guys are using, and that will unfold late in the competition. So perhaps a driver, say, running 4th, 5th, and 6th right now and being content to race in that position may have a whole lot more race car left at the end.
That's right. Tires have always been a problem here at this racetrack for these race cars. It's a lot longer race, a lot harder on tires than most of the races that they run. And here goes George Snyder. He finally found a spot. He's down on the inside of it. He's probably going to get around him, yes. Okay, once he gets up beside that guy going into the corner, he's got the momentum. He can take the racetrack away from him. He can go under him, slide right up in front of him, take that groove away. And now that he's gone, he gained 3 or 4 car lengths just all of a sudden.
And Jeff Gordon now begins to pull up on the rear bumper of Brent Keating.
That's right. Brent Keating is not a pavement specialist. He hasn't run there as much as some of these guys, and they may have missed the setup just a little bit. Oh, Snyder looks like he's going to get real aggressive and go after Kenny Schrader here all of a sudden.
Snyder is having the best drive of the evening, considering that he had to go through the last chance race, did not have a real good starting position. In fact, Snyder started outside the 8th row in the 16th position. Not real advantageous for a 100-lap event here.
Well, that's right, but you forget that George Snyder has run Indianapolis many, many times, and he's not associated with A.J. Foyt for no reason. He knows what to do on these pavement racetracks.
Stan Fox is now in the pit area. We talked about Stan earlier in the Charlie Scruggs car out of Kokomo, Indiana. Stan down from Wisconsin. Apparently the race is over for
yeah, I think it probably is. It probably with his brakes. There's no sense staying out there taking a chance on tearing your race car up. Oh, look at this.
Wally Pankratz almost up to the fence in turn 1 as he tucks now in behind Wayne Hammond. And Wally, after that scare on the airplane today outside Denver.
As we said, Gary, I don't think you're going to scare him in that race car tonight after what happened in that airplane. But he's in there after him. He's taking the low groove. And whenever you move down to that low groove, you take the chance that somebody's going to go around you coming off of number 4. Andy Hillenburg couldn't quite pull it off right there, but uh-oh.
There's Davey Hamilton in that number 69 car. We've seen Davey win on ESPN before out at the Copper Classic in Phoenix. Most of his experience has come from sprint cars and super modifieds.
Okay, here you see he tried to get on the outside of him. He got bumped a little bit. Ooh. I'll tell you what, he was seesawing back and forth, trying to find a spot to get around him, and he can't quite make up his mind. He cuts down like that once too often, he's going to catch somebody's wheel, and we're going to have a problem. But he was on the outside, he was on the inside, and every place he went, he just couldn't quite make the right moves.
50 laps now complete, so half the race is over. Let's go down to the pit area and find out what put Stan Fox out of this race.
Stan, we talked about before the race that you had a master cylinder problem. Is that what put you out?
Well, I don't know. We didn't have any brakes. I got some sparking problems about 10 laps in, and I went way back. But the motor stopped pulling the last lap, so that's what's got us.
So, in other words, no brakes was no problem, but no spark was plenty.
I was having a hard time passing with no brakes. Without the motor pulling, I was really in trouble.
Well, sorry to see you out.
Next time.
This is not the kind of racetrack and race car that you want to run without brakes. Look at this, 3 abreast coming off the corner. They don't have room to do that, but they did.
Well, I'll tell you what, those guys are really feeling racy back there. Wayne Hammond's kind of got him held up, and everybody's trying to find a groove to get around him, but nobody seems to be able to do it. 3 wide is not the comfortable feeling around this racetrack, believe me.
That'll make you hold your breath for sure. There's a good look at the red and white number 10 of Steve Butler. He's a 3-time USAC sprint car champion. In fact, the only driver to win 3 straight sprint titles. And he also doubled a couple of years ago with the sprint and the Silver Crown title, but he finds himself back in heavy traffic right now.
Yes, it looks like everybody's a little bit loose back here in this group. They all seem to be coming off of 4 with the rear end hanging out just a little bit. When your rear end's hanging out like that, it's just, you can't get on the gas fast enough to get up alongside a guy going down that next straightaway.
And if you do light up the right rear, you're just abusing the tire.
That's right. Bob CICCONI was a big loser in that little mix-up there a while ago. He was running right up there around HILLENBURG and Wally Pancratz, but now he's dropped back about 3 positions because of that little mix-up.
Well, Pancratz in the white 56, HILLENBURG in the red 85, and then it's Jack Hewitt in the white 63. There's Steve Butler in the red and white 10, and there's Bob CICCONI in the dark number 3.
Okay, Hewitt's going to give him a try now. Oh, he got loose. I'll tell you what.
He gave him a try, all right, but he had to hang on.
I'll tell you what. Once you get that tire that hot, once you go in that hard, get that car that far sideways, you've got to run pretty easy for a couple of laps. Let that tire cool back down, or you're going to ruin the tire.
And of course, a good driver files that away in his memory. If you're following somebody, Larry, and that happens, you know he has to back out just a bit. It might be a shot for you to go on by.
That's right. That's the time to make him abuse it more. That's the time to really lean on him so that you've got a chance to get around him. But it doesn't look like Steve Butler is able to do that right now. He can't get up there and really lean on him to make him abuse that tire at this point.
And right behind Davey Hamilton in that white and blue number 48, 2 cars back, would be Chuck Gurney. He's the defending series champion, but he's back in the pack tonight.
Okay, Wayne Hammond's moved way down on the racetrack. Everybody's going around him on the outside. He's run into a problem of some kind. Probably the tire's gone away. I don't know exactly, but whenever you move down that far on the racetrack, you're out of the groove. You're pretty much giving everybody the chance to go around you.
Well, we go back to the front of the pack, and the front of the pack does not mean clear sailing for Eric Gordon because he has a lot of traffic. He goes by Warren Mockler. Warren, a nice surprise with the pole position this evening, the fastest qualifier, but apparently he's not quite as fast in the race.
No, he's not. It's that sometimes happens. You get the race car really set up to go with no fuel, and then you miss the setup. You don't get it right for the start of the race, and you go backwards. Boy, oh boy, I'll tell you what.
Do you like being up here this evening, Larry, and not out there?
I'll tell you, I can't imagine. These cars are just too big and too wide to be running 3 abreast like that. And sometimes, I guess you got to do it, but it makes your heart jump.
Well, your leader in heavy traffic now as he pulls up behind Chuck Gurney. Chuck is your defending Silver Crown titleist. He is driving the car that is usually driven by Gary Irvin, but Irvin stepped out of the cockpit this evening for your defending champion. We have now completed 60 laps, 40 laps to go. We have changed the format of this program over the years. At one time, it was a 150-lap race. Last year, they had 2 75-lappers, so this year we have the 100-lap feature.
That's right. That changes your thinking a little bit. One thing I've noticed about Eric Gordon as we watch him here, he's running into the corners higher than anybody on the racetrack. To me, that tells me that that race car couldn't feel any better any way than it is right now. You watch him every corner. He's above that white line with the right side tires. In 3, which you don't usually do, and in 1. That race car, he's running it higher into the corner than anybody out there, and that means that that race car really, really feels good to him.
Gordon right now is ranked 20th in the 1990 Silver Crown Series points. He was the '89 USAC Sprint Car Rookie of the Year. He's a graduate of quarter midget, so he started racing as a youngster. But boy, he's showing maturity here this evening.
Oh, he sure is. And as we said, if it weren't for Jeff Gordon, he would be the new kid on the block this year. But it just so happens that Jeff Gordon has been the big guy that everybody has looked at all year long. And it's not to discredit this Eric Gordon. He is doing a great job. And tonight, he's doing an exceptionally great job. He led the race at the fairgrounds earlier in the year and did a real good job out there, and then fell back a little later. I think he finally ended up finishing 3rd, but he did a great job out there. Okay, here's the other Gordon. This is Jeff Gordon. He's also doing a good job. I don't know exactly. Where's he running right now, Gary?
I think he's in 6th position right now. He is 3rd, or make that 2nd in the point standings, and his goal this year was to win the USAC Silver Crown Championship. He's been very competitive in both the midgets and sprints. We've seen him win in both here on ESPN. It doesn't look like he is in contention for a victory here this evening. Of course, in the late goings, a lot of things can happen with tires.
Well, I'll tell you what, 6th place is in contention as far as I'm concerned at this racetrack with 65 laps down and 40 to go.
But he's pushing. Look at him push off the corner.
Yeah, you know, it's really hard to set those race cars up. I know we've said this, but you can't say it enough. You've got to get them set up so they're just as fast at the end as they are at the beginning. It doesn't look like they've quite got that.
But comment on his setup going into the corner. The car is pushing. It's not handling. It's wanting to go on up to the fence.
Right. He's trying to, when he twitches that wheel, when he turns that wheel back and forth, he's trying to pull that car back down off of the fence. He's trying to make him turn. He's trying to shake that back end loose by giving it that little jerk.
Well, there is Brent Keating, who is riding right in front of Jeff Gordon. We have completed now 66 laps down the backstretch. And the leader still is in heavy traffic, but I am very impressed by Eric Gordon. And there is there's Rich.
Rich is looking down at his left rear. I don't know what's wrong, but he's looking down.
Smoke coming off that number 16 car.
Yeah, and he's well aware that he's got a problem because he keeps looking down. He doesn't want that tire to go flat because he doesn't want to end up in the fence. So he knows he's got a problem. He's looking down. He's trying to figure out exactly what it is.
The black flag is being displayed, so Rich Vogler has been black flagged. Whether he wants to go to the pits or not, he'll have to.
Yes, there's a lot of smoke now. It's probably oil smoke. He knew he had the problem. He kept trying to figure out what it was, and now then he's going to have to pull in the pits and find out.
Another car slowing down the backstretch.
Okay,
so all of a sudden now in the race, Larry, we're at 69, almost 70 laps. Attrition starts to play a role.
That's right. Attrition is going to play a role in this long of a race. I'm a little surprised we haven't had more fatalities already than we have had. Here Rich is in there. They're checking it over. The smoke is coming definitely out of the engine. It looks like it's an oil leak, and if it is, they won't let him go back out on the racetrack.
Well, there's a look at Rich as he is in the pits and obviously out of the race. You talk about making a pit stop. I recall one year you were leading late and had to make a pit stop and the race was over.
Well, when it was 150 laps, almost everybody made a pit stop that very first year. I was leading the race late in the race. If I came in on a yellow, trying to make my pit stop on the yellow instead of on the green. If I could have pulled that off and done it right, we could have won that race. But unfortunately, we didn't do a very good job on a pit stop, and Rick Hood went ahead and won the race.
And looky here. Schrader up to 2nd position now, and look at him fight that wheel. And Boston Louis Seymour's car, it's red now, as we said, normally a black car. Boston pulls out of Massachusetts to support USAC competition. And look at the struggle going on. But obviously, Kenny Schrader's in great shape. He goes out and runs 500 laps for 4 hours on a Sunday afternoon, where most of these guys are running only 50, 7,500 lap features.
That's right. He's in a much better physical condition, most of these guys. You run 4 hours in Dover, Delaware, and believe me, you know you've been in a race car for a long, long time. So this is like a cakewalk to him as far as the length of the race goes. Some of these other guys who only were used to running 15, 20-minute long sprint car races, it might be beginning to get to them a little bit. It might be causing them to slow up a little bit. But he is now running real good, and I think he's actually picking up a little bit of space on Eric Gordon, so it could be interesting.
Let's go back to the pits and find out what put Rich Vogler out.
Rich Vogler, you and I talked a couple of weeks ago, and you said you just can't seem to have any luck whenever the cameras are around. It looks like it's come back to haunt you again. What put you out?
Well, I don't know. Something happened to the engine there, but I'm glad I'm on camera because last week ESPN and Larry Rice accused me of cheating with my fuel at Salem. We had a meeting with Wednesday at Roger McCluskey, and he okayed my fuel. He gave me my $100 back and said he was going to apologize. Roger apologized on TV tonight.
Obviously, a point made by Rich Vogler as he's out of this race.
Only 12 cars now remain on the lead lap. And right now, 12th position belongs to Bob Cicconi, and that is your leader closing down on Bob. So 12 cars remain on the lead lap, 75 laps now complete, 25 laps to go.
Yes, but Kenny Schrader is pulling up on him. We can't see him here, but Kenny's been slowly picking up the pace, slowly picking up on Eric Gordon. I think before this race is over, you're going to see him up there challenging, and we could have a heck of a finish here. Okay, here we see him back in the lap traffic. He's picking up on these lap cars and not back far behind there. We might be able to see Kenny Schrader now we couldn't see him there, but he's not very far back. He's less than a half straightaway back, and he's really been picking up here the last 3 or 4 laps. And as they get in traffic, I think you're going to see the more experience of Kenny Schrader come through. He's going to be able to pick off these cars a little quicker than Eric Gordon. I might get surprised, but I think that's what's going to happen.
Well, of course, he has so much talent and so much experience. Perhaps the most versatile young driver in America right there. Kenny Schrader, despite his Winston Cup commitments, every free weekend he's out racing something someplace. He's been in midgets, he's been in the Silver Crown cars, he's been in the short track stock cars, he owns his own short track. But look at this, he is closing in. Look at that gap close lap after lap, and it is traffic that's making a play. So there now, you have to look at Kenny Schrader, and Schrader goes down the inside. Now we ride along with him in the CarQuest Cage Cam. I like this shot down the backstretch.
I tell you what, Kenny Schrader, look at his hands. He's not moving those hands very much. He's keeping that car as absolutely straight as he can. That's when you know a guy's doing a real good job. He's got the race car set up when he just can move those hands just a little bit as he goes through the corners and still get the race car through there fast. I tell you, Eric Gordon, he's going to have to really use everything he's got to get through this traffic right now, because if he makes a flub, Kenny Schrader is going to be right on his tail and go around him. He can't afford to wait. He's going to have to go and go now.
CICCONI on the low side of the dark number 3. On the high side, there's a look at Kenny Schrader. Eric Gordon goes by, and Davey Hamilton. Davey Hamilton went on by, so he moves up a position. That was a battle for position as Hamilton goes by CICCONI.
That's right. It's very, very heavy traffic. And I'll tell you what, Eric Gordon's doing a good job. He's gotten right through those guys a lot quicker than I thought he might have. He's got 3 cars between him and Kenny Schrader now, and that makes a big difference. It makes it much harder.
Just coming up behind Kenny, just out of camera view, the right, the nose right there. The black number 11, George Snider. This could well be a shootout between the 2 veterans, the red number 29, the black 11, and we have 18 laps for this to unfold.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's why I love dirt car racing. It's been my favorite since the first day I stepped in one, and it still is, because there's so many really, really competitive cars. You can't ever count anybody out. It's a 100-lap race. Everybody's got their shot. George Snider started 16th. He's up there, and he's going to give her a shot before she's all over.
Okay, now traffic begins to play in favor of Eric, because now there are some lap cars between first and second.
Yes, you see the Kenny Schrader, he knows he can't wait. But I'll tell you what, that's a slight job, all right, and he pulled it off. But he knows the race is going away. He knows he can't afford to wait. He's got to, you know, you can't save your tires at this point. It's all or nothing. If you want to win this race, you got to get on the stick and go after it now.
1 lap car between first and second. Kenny Schrader closes down. And right behind Kenny Schrader is George Snider.
Yeah, George Snider, he's not waiting on anybody either. And I'll tell you what, I said he might have used his tires up, but he sure didn't. He knew exactly what he was doing when he was passing those cars on the inside early in the race. And obviously he had the race car set up to do it. And that's why he is who he is.
Oh, trouble with Schrader. Had trouble that time. Almost got the fence, got real high up in the marbles. But look at this battle right here for second position. That allowed Ziggy, George Snider, to close in, and this is the battle for position.
That's right. It's going to be a good battle. George Snider is he's a heck of a race car driver. He's run Indianapolis a lot of times. These fast pavement racetracks don't scare him a bit, and he's going to give him a shot. He just couldn't quite pull it off as he went to the inside. Schrader's a little loose. You can see the back end of that car sliding out. When you get that loose, it's awful, awful tough to hold those guys back and still get on the throttle.
Well, of course, this battle for second between these two may allow Eric to go ahead and open up that gap a little more.
Works right into his plate. You know, it's exactly what he wants to happen. He wants those guys back there worrying about each other and forgetting about him. And that's what's happened here in the last few laps. And he's got a little bit away from him now. And it could be the thing that saves him for this race.
Well, only 13 laps to go.
Oh, there he goes. Oh, boy.
He's trying to hang on. And there goes Snider. Snider got him. Had the momentum up on the low side. Coming off the corner, makes the pass. And Ziggy may be the guy to look for now.
That was a great pass. He got in there. That car was sliding sideways right towards Schrader, but he never touched him. He stopped it. He got around him. He turned it down and went right under Schrader. It was a great, great move, and Ziggy really has got this low groove down pat.
You ever talk to yourself in the cockpit when you make a great move and say, Larry, that was a great move?
Sure you do. You tell yourself, man, oh man, did you see that? I did it, you know. And you sometimes when you do something stupid, you say, well, you dummy, you should have never done that.
I'm sure you don't say it that way.
Maybe not, but pretty close.
Let's go to the pit area and get an update on this great ride by Eric Gordon.
Bill, the question is, can your man hold off second place right now, George Snider?
I think he can.
Huh?
What?
He just passed him while we were talking.
Look at the change of expression there as George Snyder takes the lead. What a ride Ziggy has had this evening.
What a move. I'll tell you what, he looked like he shot out of a gun. It looked like his brakes failed when he went in that corner. He just went straight on by, never even looked back. It was an amazing pass. Sure. But I'll tell you what, he's definitely got this thing figured out tonight.
Gary Bettenhausen watching this and thinking, you know, we're about the same age. This is great.
That's right. We've had some baseball pitchers that were 41 years old throw no-hitters. We've had guys winning the U.S. Open that are old guys. Look at George Snyder. I love it.
Snyder says, we don't need a seniors league for race drivers. I'll run with the young kids.
That's right. We got one more for the books. Heck with Capriati and the 13-year-olds in the tennis tournament.
8 laps to go. Only 8 laps, and Ziggy looks like he may have this one locked up right now. But we don't know about tire wear. He was running very low very early. He may have abused that right rear, so the race is not over. Right now, going into this race, he was 14th in points, so this will certainly boost his point total and put him back in contention for another championship.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. If he can run that low on the racetrack, that early in the race, with all that fuel, then I don't think he's going to have a tire problem. Schrader still, he seems to be struggling. This is the most I've seen him struggle. Maybe the other guys are catching up with him. Maybe he doesn't quite have the car set up right, but he usually is really, really fast at this point in the race, but he seems to be struggling a little bit. He's right on Gordon's tail, but he doesn't seem to be able to do much with him.
Well, there may be a good battle shaping up for second position, but right now there's a lap car between second and third. Schrader has to get around the 69 car of Davey Hamilton before he can have a shot right now at Eric Gordon. And tell us, Larry, about setting up a car for late in the race. The car may not work real well early, but you set it up to be fast late.
That's right. All these cars, you can see Eric Gordon here. He's loose in the back end. All these cars are going to get looser because of the less weight in the back end. They're almost all loose at this point in the race. You just have to try to set your car up at the beginning so that it's not going to get as loose as everybody else, and you still got that forward drive off the corners. And that looks to be what George Snyder did. And you can see some of the guys that are getting lapped, they're now actually faster through the corners, or as fast as some of the guys that are actually trying to lap them. Kenny Schrader, too, he's real loose. Almost got the fence right now.
What just came off a car? Did I see something just come off the car? A piece of debris or a piece of pipe or something?
Well, I didn't see it, Gary, but I'll tell you what, I did see the looseness of those two race cars. Because those two guys were a little bit loose at this point in the race, George Snyder just drove on by him.
Well, we're coming up now on lap 97. Lap 97 now complete. George Snyder has 3 laps to go, but there is that battle for second position. 81, the white 81 of Eric Gordon and the red 29 of Kenny Schrader.
Yeah, Kenny Schrader, he's going to use all the experience he's got right now. He's going to use everything he's got. That was Roy Kruns that just lapped. But look at him. Oh, man, what a... Boy, he went in there hard that time. He really went in there hard.
You have to hold your breath when you're driving that deep.
Boy, you sure do, because those race cars weigh so much that if you just go in just that hair too hard, it's going to go right straight to the fence. And if you
Chuck Gurney apparently is out of brakes. He coasts all the way through the pits and goes back out on the racetrack. I think Chuck may be out of brakes as we have the waning moments of this 100-lap main event here at Indianapolis Raceway Park. The white flag, right there it is for George Snyder.
I love it. I love it. 16th of the front. That's why this racing is so good. You can start. You don't have to start in the front row. You can win this thing from anywhere.
You're not too excited, are you?
I love it. I just love it. I'm telling you what, George Snyder has done a fantastic job.
Well, here he is in turn 3, heads for turn 4, 1 corner to negotiate, and George Snyder will pick up the victory. A double checker flag salute, and our fans love it. George Snyder, and second will go to Schrader. Third to Eric Gordon, and it has to be disappointing, but Eric drove a wonderful race, a splendid effort on his part.
I'll tell you what, he did do a heck of a job. Kenny Schrader did a heck of a job. And to think that Eric Gordon finished third behind 2 of the best race car drivers in the country. George Snyder's driven Indianapolis 500 I don't know how many times. Kenny Schrader is a great stock car driver. He's won the championship in this division. And for him to finish third is quite an accomplishment, even though I know he's got to be disappointed.
Well, he's disappointed, but it's been a great education for him. And any veteran driver will tell a young driver it takes laps. The more laps a young driver can get, the more competitive he will be. It was a great ride for Eric. But here is your victor right here as they come over to help climbing out. You can see the smile through the helmet. So George Snyder, nicknamed Ziggy, started in the 16th position outside row 8, but he comes home with the victory this evening. We'll talk to him. Well, Well, it's worth the price of admission this evening at Indianapolis Raceway Park. What a drive turned in by the veteran George SNIDER, who comes from the 16th starting position and made the charge late in the race, takes the victory. Of course, Kenny Schrader finishes in second position, and the youngster from Greenfield, Indiana, who has a promising career in front of him, Eric Gordon, takes third position. Bob Fry in the V6 was fourth. Fifth, Brent Keating, who came in, as you said, not real strong on the paved tracks, not as strong as he is on dirt, has a good ride, though. Jeff Gordon finishes sixth. That will still keep him in good contention for the championship. Jack HEWITT was seventh. Eighth, Davey Hamilton. Ninth, Wally Pancratz. And 10th was Indiana, Andy Hillenburg. A lot of celebrating going on, and let's see what Ziggy has to say about that effort.
Well, baseball has Nolan Ryan, boxing has George Foreman, and tonight, well, we have got George Ziggy SNIDER. Congratulations on one heck of a drive.
Thank you very much. It was tough. We had a few problems when we went out to qualify, and I completely changed the fuel system and the nozzles before the feature in that suitcase race. The thing wasn't running at all, so we had to do something, so we gambled. We tried it, and it worked. Boy, take that one.
Let's talk about the pass for the lead. We've got it again. You look like you were shot out of a cannon.
Well, the thing ran real good. It was handling real good, and it seemed like kind of the easier I drove it, the faster the thing went off the corner. So I just started pacing myself, and things just turned out right.
Let's go back to the beginning part of the race, because Larry was making mention of the fact that you were running the low line, and that might have a tendency to eat up tires, but in your case, it didn't seem to hurt you.
Well, I figured it would eat up tires down there. That's why I really started running easy down on the bottom. I could run a lot straighter on the bottom if I ran easier, and I could get a straighter shot off the corner. If I ran up high and tried to hustle it, I'd pop the back end out.
Were you surprised at only one caution, and were you worried without the extra cautions about being able to reel in Eric Gordon?
Well, you know, he was going along pretty good, and so was Kenny, but we were working awful good, you know, and you know, everything just went right. You know, the tires worked good. I mean, Goodyear tires, the Skoll car ran perfect, and you know, we did it without Foyt being here, so that makes me happy. So anyway, I'd like to say hi to my wife, Debbie.
He's probably watching, and you're going to get a phone call. George SNIDER, congratulations on your victory for the Pepsi 100. We'll be back with more on Saturday Night Thunder.
Well, the crowd's starting to file out after just a tremendous competition here at Indianapolis Raceway Park, but a lot of the fans are hanging around waiting for that pit gate to open up so they can go talk to their new heroes out there. 49-year-old George SNIDER wins it. In a comment that we were just talking about, it looks like unrehearsed pandemonium from up here or in the grandstand, but as a race driver in the cockpit, Larry, the track ends right behind your car. You're concerned with up here, here, or here. Back there doesn't exist.
Yes, and sometimes that makes it a lot less scary in the race car than it is outside the race car. You can only see the guys that are in front of you, the guys on either side of you, the ones that you're dicing with. You can't see the guys behind you that you're almost cutting off when you make a certain move. So
until they bump you.
Well, yeah, until they hit you. So really, it's much easier, much less scary to actually run the race car than it is to be out here watching sometimes.
Well, we have to find out if something happened to Kenny Schrader's car. It looked like he brushed the fence, and I think Marty has corralled him down in the pit area.
Yeah, we're with second place Kenny Schrader, just one shy of being able to defend it all. But you say you ran into a bit of a problem in lap 40 and got close to the wall once.
Well, we just we only hit the wall twice up here today, and that's pretty good for this place because you run pretty close. But little car did real good. We got a brake hop about halfway through, so we quit using our brakes, but it didn't really hurt our track times here. And we saw we were catching there at the end. I just got to hustling a little too hard and got to run the car a little sideways and got brake hopping, but we didn't have anything for George. George was too fast.
We were talking on the air. You could hear these guys, especially Larry Rice, just jumping up and down for joy because, you know, this is one for the older club. Is this still a race that experience counts? Because it seemed like right at the end when it needed it most, those last 10 laps was when young Eric Gordon started to back up.
Well, Eric had some tire problems. You know, the first three cars were all on different tires. They both had Goodyears on. We had different brand on. But Eric's tires just went away on him. He was awful fast for a long time. But George, you know, he was right all day. I didn't see him coming through. But he must, knowing George, he just picked his way through nice and smooth. And so he'd have something for the end.
I think one question everybody at home is wondering, how does 100 laps here at this tighter track compare to, say, 4 hours at Dover?
Well, I would like to head a yellow at lap 100, come in, take some tires, and go out and run a couple hundred more. You know, that'd been more for me, but it's a lot of fun here.
Well, it's a good finish. Let's go back to the top 10 as we head for a break, and we'll be back with Eric Gordon right here on Saturday Night Thunder from Indianapolis Raceway Park.
George Snider continues to celebrate in victory lane. Don't forget, baseball tonight coming up momentarily with Dave Marish. But back here at Indianapolis Raceway Park, a new term that I want you to talk about, this brake hop. Now, Kenny Schrader said I developed a brake hop.
Well, that means when you put on the brakes, for some reason, they sometimes, I don't know whether it's the heat in them or what happens, but they catch and then they let loose. They catch and let loose. And when it does that, it actually pulls your rear wheels off of the ground. When that happens, it completely upsets the race car. Kenny said he completely quit using the brakes, and that was a reason. It was easier to go in a little slower and not run quite as fast than to have that thing jumping up and down and just completely throwing himself off balance, and also using the tires up much worse.
Well, we've talked to two seasoned veterans, and I know a lot of folks were out there pulling for the youngster, Eric Gordon. He is standing by now with Marty.
Well, for 9/10 of this race, the man on my right was out in front and just blistering the track. But I guess the question everybody wants to know is, was the pace just a little bit too fast and it hurt you in the end?
Well, you know, I'm not experienced dealing with the heavy cars. And I went out, I thought I was setting a good pace, and crew didn't signal me, so I figured I had no trouble. I started picking it up more and more as the fuel load went down. And dealing with lap traffic, I burnt the right front up. And then I had to compensate and go in a little harder on the right rear. And when I did that, you know, I ate the right rear up, and I figured Kenny would get me, and it really surprised me when George got me.
One of the comments Larry Rice made while you were out there in front, how smooth everything seemed to run. Was the car as set up as well as it looked to us?
Yeah, the car's really set up nice. Phil Schuler sets up all my Oz cars, and, you know, he's one of the best. He gives me the best equipment to go out there, and I'm just in the learning process right now. He's the one that makes me look good.
Well, I know you are a little disappointed for not winning, but believe me, you put on a fine performance tonight, and there will be a day when Eric Gordon standing here in victory lane. Thanks, Eric. We'll be back to close it out for tonight's edition of Saturday Night Thunder, but first, we got to pause for this.
ESPN Saturday Night Thunder has been brought to you by Levi's 505 and 506 jeans. By Olympic, the family of stain products that protects your home from the damage rain can do. Olympic stops the rain. And by Quaker State, the Big Q is One Top Motor Oil. Top 15 drivers after 100 circuits here at Indianapolis Raceway Park. Once again, George Snider takes the victory from the 16th starting position. Kenny Schrader finishes second. Eric Gordon, who led lap after lap after lap, and I think the key was he will be in victory lane very, very soon. We'll see him in victory lane. Bob Frey in the V6 Chevrolet finishes fourth, and rounding out the top five, Brent Keating. As we move now to the 6th through 10th position, Jeff Gordon, car number 35, finishes 6th. Then it was Jack Hewitt. Davey Hamilton, a good ride for Davey. Wally Pankratz in the 56 car finishes 9th and 10th. Indiana's Andy Hillenburg. In the 11th position, Bob Ciccone out of Prospect Park, Pennsylvania. Warren Mockler, who was the fast qualifier, started from the pole position, finishes 12th. Chuck Gurney finishes in the 48 car in the 13th position. Then Roy Carruthers, a good drive for a first time here. And Roy Carruthers, Rusty McClure, then finishes in the 15th position. And I tell you what, you can see why the drivers and fans love this racing series. It's rare to see these guys on the pavement, and when they get on the pavement, it is a shootout.
That's right. It's always been a shootout here. It's always been a good race, and I think that's why Bob Daniels keeps having them back every year. It's a great racing series. This was one of the best races I've seen for a long, long time, and I think the fans enjoyed it, and I know the competitors enjoyed it.
But once again, strategy, patience, years of experience. George Snider did not do that well in qualifying, but as he told us, he made some changes, he guessed, and it worked.
All those things play a part. You have to try to plan for the end of the race as well as the beginning of the race, and that's what he did. Kenny Schrader did the same thing. Eric Gordon did it, and he only missed by 10 laps of being exactly right, and that's how precise this strategy can be.
But it's also a learning process. It's an educational process for a young driver like Eric Gordon. Okay, he files away what he learned this evening. He'll come back and be stronger the next time. So obviously it was an excellent race. It was you got excited and you got me excited, but it was nice to see the older generation come through as George Snider picks up the victory in the Pepsi-Cola 100 here at Indianapolis Raceway Park. Tonight's in-car cameras have been provided by CarQuest. For your nearest CarQuest Auto Parts store, call 1-800-492-PART. You'll find it at CarQuest. Don't forget, coming up tomorrow, more auto racing. The IMSA Camel Continental 7 live from Watkins Glen at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And baseball action tomorrow live at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN, the Orioles and the Twins. And coming up next, it's Baseball Tonight with Dave Marish. That wraps it up from Indianapolis Raceway Park. For Larry Rice and Marty Reed, I'm Gary Lee. Thanks for joining us. So long from Indianapolis.